The European Cup is returning to England, and this time it's for keeps.
Just 8 remain in the Champions League. The road to Istanbul is narrowing all the time, and in the Spanish capital, 2 European heavyweights go head-to-head. So with 19 European Cups between them, which of these 2 giants will book their place in the last 4? Quarter-final first leg, Real Madrid against Liverpool tonight from 8 o'clock. Very good evening to you. Welcome along to the Matchday live preview. With me in the studio tonight, Gary Gillespie, and fresh from landing the 1645 from Paris Charles de Gaulle with British Airways, Jason McAteer is here as well.
Mate, seriously.
Aye, Captain.
Mate, seriously, it's Champions League, a quarter-final against Real Madrid. I put the boss suit on, you know what I mean? I've looked at myself in the mirror and thought, you look the part tonight. I'm doing my bit.
Yeah.
I'm doing my bit.
Thoughts, Gary?
Well dressed to impress. I think he looks
very dapper.
Yeah.
Look smart, play smart. That's what I say.
And we've only got where do we go when the semi-finals and final? I just dread to think what you'll be wearing. Tuxedo by the final in Istanbul, isn't it?
As long as
you called it.
As long as it's not that white suit.
That's an official promise. If Champions League final, Jason McAteer's wearing a tuxedo, just a bow tie.
Yeah, well,
I don't know we'll get many viewers for that.
I hope I'll be there.
Absolutely, you will be there, Jason. You'll be first man on the plane if we're allowed to go anywhere, of course.
In this suit.
We're at the quarter-final stage, Gary, and you get the sense that the sort of big cats of European football have been playing with a few mice over the last few rounds, but this is where the big boys all lock horns from now on.
Yeah, they're more or less all in there, aren't they? And it doesn't come any bigger and better than Real Madrid. I think when you join this competition and you play in this competition, it's synonymous with Real Madrid. 13 times they've won the competition. Fantastic occasion, I think, any time that we've played against them. It's 2 giants of European football coming together, and it should be a fantastic game. Let's hope it is. Sometimes it kind of maybe fall flat on its face a little bit, but I don't think that will happen tonight. I think when you look at the quality on both sides, and I think if you'd ask anybody, I think in the draw, who you maybe possibly wanted, I think you'd have probably said Real Madrid. I think that there's always something special when you play against these big teams, and Real Madrid, there's none come really any bigger than Real Madrid.
Yeah, we've sat through 4 years of Champions League football now, and every time we get to a knockout stage, I always say to you, who do you want to draw? And you always answer with Real Madrid. It is a tie with great romance to it. And this one is also intriguing because 2 teams who have had maybe tough times throughout the course of the domestic season, but always seem to raise their game for European football.
Absolutely. I mean, when the teams get thrown into the hat and you get asked as pundits, don't you? And we look and you think Porto was in there, you'd fancy them. But really, like I said, you want to play the big teams. It whets your appetite as players. It's where you want to be. I know it's the quarter-final stage, and it'd be quite fitting for this to be a final because Real Madrid, like Gaz, he summed it up beautifully. It's royalty of European football. But yeah, I mean, you pick them at the quarter-final stage. It's balanced, fantastically well. Both teams coming into it with a bit of form. Like you said, they've both had their troubles through the seasons. They've both had bad periods, off periods. But, you look at Real Madrid, I think it's 9 in the last 11 they've won. Liverpool, 3 clean sheets, 3 victories. They've sort of found a partnership. Fabinho's back in midfield. They're starting to score goals again. You could say the same for Real Madrid. But on the flip side of it, they're both missing some big players. So it's poised fantastically well. What I would say is Liverpool away from home, I think it's 8 out the last 9 they've won. You'd suggest that they could possibly be favourites. But listen, you can't count out an ageing Madrid team. They know their way around this cup.
Yeah, I mean, that is one of the significant things, isn't it? They are ageing, but they do seem to sort of raise themselves to the big occasion. In contrast, a lot of the questions for Jurgen Klopp yesterday were, is it all about revenge from Kiev 3 years ago? Does that come into a player's mind tonight, what happened, and that the heartbreaking circumstances in which Liverpool lost that final?
No, I don't think it does, to be quite honest. I think you want to. This is the here and now, and this, I think we've struggled all season. This is an escape route. This is a way out for Liverpool, and possibly a way out for Real Madrid. I think I've said it on numerous occasions when I've been interviewed here. The fact that Real Madrid seem to be that one side that can be real flat through the course of their season in any sort of like league or any kind of season, but they've always been able to raise themselves for this competition. And you know what? Maybe Liverpool are like that a little bit in the same bracket as that. I hope so tonight. I mean, the final there. When you analyse the final, yes, Real Madrid played well, but we gave them 2 goals. The other goal was a worldie from Gareth Bale. That, you know, I mean, how many times is he going to put that in the top corner, an overhead kick? It didn't happen too often. You know, so there's only fractions in it between the two sides on that night. But I don't think there'll be any sort of revenge. This, as I say, this is the here and now. You want to progress in this season, and for good reasons as well, because we certainly ain't going to win the Premier League. But what a second tournament to win. Champions League, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. Well, Liverpool are looking to become the first club ever to win 2 away games against Real Madrid, albeit tonight in a slightly different stadium, as Mark Benstead can explain.
Thank you, Rob. Good evening from Madrid. A slightly different backdrop to tonight's game, it has to be said. Not the usual setting we would have for a game of this magnitude. The game tonight is being played here at the Alfredo Di Stefano Stadium out at Real Madrid's training complex on the edge of the city. That's partly because of the COVID-19 pandemic and partly to allow for renovation work to take place at the Bernabeu. So since June last year, all Madrid's games have been taking place here. It's just a 6,000 capacity stadium. It does feel slightly strange for a Champions League quarter-final, and especially so when you bear in mind the 2 teams that are playing. These 2 sides are effectively European footballing royalty. 19 Champions League triumphs between the 2 clubs. They have met 6 times in total. All the meetings have come in this competition. It is 3 wins apiece. The most recent meeting, of course, was 2018, the final in Kiev, where Madrid were victorious. The 2 sets of players tonight will know each other pretty well because the 2 squads are very similar from that day. In fact, the 2 starting 11s from that game in Kiev, only 2 players from each side have moved on from the club in the intervening period. In terms of team use for tonight, well, we knew long before this game was taking place that Sergio Ramos would be out. He's missing both games against Liverpool because of a calf problem. Today, Real Madrid also lost their other first-choice centre-half. Rafael Varane tested positive for COVID-19 this morning, so he will not be involved this evening either. Dani Carvajal is also out at the back, but Fede Valverde is back training and he is available for selection potentially this evening. No Eden Hazard for Real Madrid either. He's still out injured. That is potentially good news for us, of course. He has a fantastic record against Liverpool, 7 goals against us during his time at both Lille and Chelsea. In terms of our team selection, well, our injuries haven't quite fully cleared up, of course. Our counter list still remains pretty lengthy, but it's stabilised a bit of late. We've had Diogo Jota back, of course, and he's added some thrust up front. He's added goals, of course, since he returned, 2 at the weekend, 12 so far for the season. We can hear from him in just a second, but first let's hear from the Reds boss Jurgen Klopp, who says being able to field the same back 4 in the last 3 matches has helped contribute to getting 3 clean sheets in a row.
It's a reason. It's not the only reason, but it's a reason, 100%. It helps massively if you work longer together and play longer together. But and I said it after the game directly, very important that the whole setup, the whole lineup defended with big determination, massively disciplined. Was everything in what you need. Those are the right spaces. Everybody felt responsible. That was makes a difference. And tomorrow will be a proper test for that, by the way, because the opponent obviously asks for defensive organisation, and we can show there that we are there on the right path.
We are in a good momentum. We left for the international break with 2 wins and 2 clean sheets. And now we follow the same path with another good win, and obviously the performance was a lot better as well than in previous games. So we want to build on that, and tomorrow is a big challenge for us, and we need to be ready. We will probably need to run a lot, to fight a lot, because the way they play, and obviously they are the teams with most titles in this competition. They are used to this kind of knockout stages. So we're gonna need to be at our best if you want to get a result tomorrow.
Well, Gary, when we spoke after the game to Jason and to Tomo on Saturday, we were sort of trying to work out who might come into this tie as favourites. Does the news that Mark mentioned there with the absence of Rafael Varane as well as Sergio Ramos just tip the scales in Liverpool's favour a touch?
Yeah, I think when you look at the players that they have out, add Eden Hazard into that as well. It's a big loss for them, isn't it? 3 massive players.
With Carvajal as well, who's a regular.
So I don't know if you can go into a game like this, one side being favourites or not, to be quite honest with you. I think the pedigree that both sides show throughout this competition, and certainly in the past seasons, it's difficult to pick a favourite. If you were doing so, you'd probably say that Liverpool might just have the upper hand a little bit. But I think that's a tough one to call, to be quite honest with you.
As big as it is, I mean, we're seeing the pictures of the ground there. Listen, you played in the Bernabeu, haven't you?
I played in the Bernabeu.
Yeah. It's impressive, isn't it? I mean, when you walk out and it's some.
I played a little bit before your time, so it
probably looked the same, wasn't it? Was it not?
No, it was falling apart.
When I went there a couple of seasons ago, it's amazing. It's an amazing stadium, and it's fans or no fans. When you walked out, it's going to whet your appetite. I mean, we were looking up to playing 70,000, and it was an amazing experience. But you could just see, it's Real Madrid. It's like it's souped through the R and everything, and to play in this training ground, because that's what it is, a training complex. I think we'll take the edge off the tie. It's whether the players, they're not going to walk out and get that sense of, all right, it's the Champions League and it's Real Madrid and it's still going to be some great players on the pitch, but just the surroundings sometimes can whet your appetite, can't it? You walk out.
Yeah. But who do you see as being favourites with regards to the fact that it's getting played at a training ground then?
I think you've got to go with Real Madrid.
Yeah.
I think you've got to go with Real Madrid. Liverpool were, they've been exceptional. It was at Bucharest where they played, but still it was a fantastic... Budapest. It was still a fantastic stadium when you walk out. I don't know, I just think it'll give the upper hand to Madrid for me, this training ground.
We talked about the defensive absentees for Real Madrid. Jota, Firmino or both?
Well, we've just tried to work out Real Madrid's team, didn't we? Going away from a 3 at the back. Liverpool's is equally as difficult to call. The back 4, the back 5 obviously picks itself. Fabinho's going to play. And then what does he do with the other 2 midfielders? Does Wijnaldum come back in? Does he stick with Thiago? Possibly, I think they'll go with them too. But then again, where do you shoehorn Jota and Firmino into the team? One of them's got to give way somewhere. He did it against Atalanta. I thought it worked a treat. It did. The performance and the result showed that Jota's hat-trick. I go with both tonight. You don't?
No, I would be tempted to play both. I must have myself, but I don't think he will. I think he'll have one of them on the bench. What one that is, I'm not 100% sure. I just think that he'll go with a solid midfield 3 with the likes of, I think Wijnaldum might come in for James Milner. And I think he'll play Thiago, and he'll definitely play Fabinho. That would suggest that there's no place for the 2 of them.
For me, it's Thiago goes, Jota comes in. He goes with Wijnaldum and Fabinho. If he was to go that way, it'd be a 4-2-3-1 with Jota and Firmino in there. Saying that, if not, I agree with what Gaz has just said.
Just a quick point, we talked about Real Madrid's defenders, a huge night for Nat Phillips and Ozan Kabak, and a right old test against one of the great European strikers, Karim Benzema.
Well, I think he scored something like 70 goals in this competition.
Only 4 more.
Yeah, so he has a fantastic record, not just in the Champions League as well, but since he's gone to Real Madrid, and he really has become the focal point now, isn't he, of the team now that all the big superstars have kind of left the football club, and there's a lot of weight on his shoulders. He has the experience to carry that as well, though. You don't play at Real Madrid for the length of time that he has played and scored the amount of goals that he scored and be a bad player. He's a decent player. He will be a handful.
And he has scored every time he has faced Liverpool as a Real Madrid player. Thank you, boys. We will be back at 7 o'clock with team news, and we'll hear more from Jurgen Klopp and from Diogo Jota. It is a mouth-watering quarter-final tie, Real Madrid against Liverpool. All the build-up, LFC TV and LFC TV Go from 7 o'clock tonight. We'll see you a bit later on. Bye for now.